Morning, did you get what you need?
Sitting for 2 hours thinking you're going to play
If
time.
you were you had a lot of that as a trailer, you're
Thanks for adding it to something.
Perfect.
We'll get back to it. Gentleman for gentleman.
We have to call or can it lights on the building?
pretty cool.
Agreement finally. I think we're good on the developers agreement finally.
6 grand a piece.
I'm hallucinating at
I know you're in the
Change the statute of that. These new rules, but you don't know where exactly the money is. There's 2 cases.
Still going on for Southern Trail first. We're going to do is we're going to talk.
Yes.
So we're going to Florida first. And
They're
then
at one.
What's that? Looks like it's set.
Yeah, you change the whole road if you want to. Black check that same thing instead of silver.
One shoot either.
just outside of Bardstown, Tennessee.
I'll let you know if I do it. Just like you let me know. There's this capital bond in place. Perfect. I'll let
Stayed there for about 4 months. And
They always
then
go down there.
up north with Ross.
You all set? All right, let's call this meeting to order. Start out with the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move on to the roll call. Trustee Howie
Present.
Trustee Clark. Here. Trustee Renner. Here. Attorney Schober. Trustee Classic here. Clerk Ford. Trustee Goodman excused. Trustee Khan not present. Trustee Long.
Present.
Outstanding. Move on to item 2. We have an update from Mr. Paul France regarding our 2019 and 2020 Village of Big Bend audits.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So you should have multiple bound audits in front of you, and then a stapled couple-page handout. I'll use the stapled stuff to go through. I won't keep it too long, but you have both the 12/31/19 and the 12/31/20 audit in front of you. We have expressed an unmodified opinion in both audits, also known as a clean bill of health. It's the highest level of assurance that I can provide you as your external auditor, and the ultimate outcome you're looking to hear when having an audit. Keep in mind, both of those audits were the transactions within the system that were audited were under multiple management individuals. So any controls that have been put into place with new management's arrival in 2021 have not been included in those reports. They helped us through those audits greatly. I think we issued 19 at the end of November, early December, and then here in February issued the 2020 audit. So we're moving along, catching up, which is great. We will be doing the 2021 audit mid-June, so we'll be back into the normal cycle with that issued a few months thereafter. And then we'll get you right back into the normal cycle where you had been, which is typically 3 or 4 months after year end is when the audit process begins. So moving back then to the handout, The unmodified opinion that I referenced, what that tells you is that in that financial statement document, all necessary disclosures have been made within that document. All accounting principles have been applied consistently year over year, and that ultimately the statements are free of material mistakes. And again, that's the outcome you're looking to here. Typically, I go through in detail some of the financial highlights, seeing how stale the numbers are. I don't think I can provide you with any beneficial information to utilize and make decisions on. I'll just note that the fund balance in the general fund has continued to go up. You're in a positive position as of 12/31/20. You're above where we look for you to be somewhere between 10 to 25% in your reserves at least. You're above the 25%. I think you're at 37%. So moving in a very good direction with that. We also issue what's referred to as an audit results letter. That'd be the one that looks pretty, that marketing got a hold of. A lot of consistent information in there between the 2 years. We continue to note multiple material weaknesses that we have to report under our financial or auditing standards. One being that we prepare the financial statement document. Not an unusual material weakness to receive. Of the 70 or so communities that I work with throughout the year, 95% of them receive that. There's just a cost benefit to having a CPA on staff that is specialized in governmental accounting that can prepare that document. It doesn't make sense. But under our standards, we just have to make you aware that we do that. Additionally, there's a material weakness around segregation of duties. In a small municipality, not unusual to have or need to have overlap in the significant transaction cycles. We will continue to work with management to earmark where improvements can be made without adding additional people in the mix. There's just a cost benefit. It doesn't make sense to hire your 2 to 3 people in that office away from having appropriate segregation of duties. But why we have to, under our standards, make you aware of that, just so that the information that management provides you, you add a layer of lens to that in understanding the limitations that exist in the controls that you do have. The last one in there talks about multiple checking accounts, and that's really what I was referring to in 2021. Management has come in and added some additional controls around the second check stock. We have not audited that process, but that's what I was poking around while you were reviewing. I fully believe that this comment will move out of the material weakness category moving forward. If it'll still be a deficiency, we'll figure that out as I go through. But management's taken a number of steps to ensure that there's good controls in place over that second check stock. Additionally, in that letter, there's some other comments and recommendations that we have that will continue, that don't raise to the same level of material weakness. We'll continue to work with management and discuss those and implement a plan to either address them or move away from not having to report them. But they are not high priority items. Additionally, there's a section with some required communications that we have to have with you. We put it in writing. This is where we list out any new accounting principles that we've adopted. So any new GASBs that have come down the line that management needs to implement, we help them with that process, and then that defines that process in the letter. Lists out the accounting estimates that we evaluate that are included in the financial statement document. All those estimates are clear, neutral, and non-biased, meaning in plain English, they're okay to be in the report. There's a section there if we have difficulties performing the audit. I have to note it. Certainly from a time standpoint and the amount of turnover, there were difficulties, but nothing directly from management. We received nothing but cooperation. So there's nothing noted in there, and had there been a reason to report it, you would have heard about it long before this presentation. Lastly, I list out any non-attest services that we provide during the audit process. Non-attest being non-audit services. We do a number between journal entries, preparing the financial statements. We do some bank reconciliations currently that will be transitioning to management in 2022 with some training. ultimately, at the end of the day, I have to share that information because each time we do one of those, I have to make sure that from an audit standpoint, we remain independent. I'm happy to say we are, which allows me to give you the opinions that I have, and will continue to do so moving forward. Lastly, there's a section in there that talks about a two-way communication. As we look forward to the 2021 audit, if there are things that you would like us to do differently, kick the tires harder on, it lays out kind of what that timeline, as far as when I need to know that to build the audit procedures around that. Again, we'll be planning to do the 21 audit in mid-June, so anytime between now and then is appropriate. We share this. If I hear from one board member a year, in all my clients, we just share it just to let you know that at the end of the day, we do work for you. And so if there's information that you want us to dive into differently, you do have control in suggestions around what we can do, but I don't expect to unless there's a reason to. Okay. So with that, that's my short presentation. I'm happy to answer any direct questions that you have, but otherwise it's a privilege to work with the village, and excited to be moving into a realm of more current financial information to share with you in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I ask just for clarification?
Of course.
June, is that the start of the audit for 2021?
Yeah, so we've done some planning internally, but mid-June will be the point in time when we come on site to do substantive work around the 21 year.
Okay. And then when would you estimate that would be finished?
Yeah, good question. So typically, the audit will take a week for us to do the substantive testing, and then once we leave the field, it's somewhere between 4 to 12 weeks from issuance. So I would expect by the end of September, assuming that everything goes as it should, that'd be the latest that this would be issued. But I hope it would be sooner than that.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate the question. Now I'll write myself a note so I don't forget.
Now you got a timeline you need to.
All right, no, I like it. No, we're good. No worries.
Any other questions?
All right,
Thanks for coming in, Paul.
Thank you, no problem. Have a good night. Good to see you.
Moving along, item 3, public comments. Anybody guys any public comments? Please stand up, write your name on this sheet, and trying to keep them to about 2 minutes or so. All right, if there are no public comments, we'll move along. Item 4A, Fire Department Monthly Report. Good evening, Chief.
All right, we had 14 calls for the month, 29 for the year. Our members have been helping out considerably over the past month. We want to thank Keith Null, Dave Treichel, and Bill Braun for their hard work done at Station 2 over the last month. We will be moving several items from Station 1 down to Station 2 and setting up another small office for files and equipment over the next month or so. Our hose scheduling has been scheduled and set up. It should be taken care of sometime summer or fall. We're not sure what the schedule is going to be yet. Our trucks will start going in for their annual inspections and certifications during months of March and April. With being moved out of the front office area, we're in the process of moving into the kitchen area. This has been a long process as we're going through files and different materials. We're hoping to have everything up and running later this month. We are currently in the process of purchasing a new training program called Target Solutions. This system will allow us to complete and log entries throughout the department, complete online courses, and enter all department trainings and certifications. Captains Paramedic Lindsay Fickow and Paramedic Michael Ludwig will be working on this project. We have met with President Lassick and Trustee Hudishow on future department matters. We appreciate and are looking forward to further discussions and meetings as we continue. Our officers are working on matters that were discussed at the village board last month. And if you have any questions, please feel free to call us and get a hold of us. All right.
Any questions?
One thing I'd like to add on to the fire department report, this will go to the department heads. We're gonna have a surplus of file cabinets, so anyone who is interested in a file cabinet, please let us know. Otherwise, we're gonna end up probably scrapping them, so, I mean, we've got probably at least 4 or 5 we may end up with, so. So if you guys need some file cabinets, please let us know.
Thank you. Item 4B, Library Monthly Report. Carla is obviously not here this evening. Your library report is included in here. Review it at your leisure. Don't see anything as far as upcoming events or programs. So we'll move on. Item 4C, Police Department Monthly Report. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, everybody. Reports are in front of you. One assault was actually 2 fraud. One came in right at the end. That didn't get on there. 1 intoxicated driver, 1 disorderly conduct, 1 harassment injunction violation, 2 adult arrests, 66 traffic stops, 48 citations, 272 total calls, 172 business checks, house checks, extra patrols, 5 traffic accidents, mostly from the nice ice storm that we had, and responded with the fire department to EMS and fire calls, 12. The items of note are on the next page and a half. If you want to read through those while I continue. 21 total salvage vehicle inspections since we started the program back up. Talking with the guys that are coming that are actually used car dealers. We talked about this before. The reason everything's slowed down so much is the price. They can't even get cars at decent prices right now, so the restore them has been a struggle for them also. Hour and 17 minutes to assist other agencies. State debt collection, we had a little confusion of getting the numbers and difficulty getting them with the new court clerk system in place. Big Ben, $4,758.52. Total is for the year is at the bottom there. And the town of Waukesha will report on next month when we have that accurate number. We had a National Night Out meeting this morning. We're going to have National Night Out on Tuesday, August 9th, for all of your information. We start at 5 p.m. Normally it goes to 8. We were talking about maybe extending it a little bit to do something different. We're working on some things with that. Also, I'd like to thank Eric and Chuck, who replaced all our lights in our police department and our evidence room to LED lights, and nice and bright in there, and they did a great job. That's all I got. Questions, comments, complaints, concerns? Yeah, give it going.
The vehicle inspections, have we sent Jamie out to do them?
No.
Or they will?
There's not enough going on right now.
Perfect.
Item 4D, President's Report, and we'll report tonight. Item 4E, Public Works Department Monthly Report.
Good evening, Eric.
Good evening, Eric.
We had 5 barrels this month, 5 stakings. We sold 6 plots. I know the cemetery stuff is on here for tonight. It's something I'm glad we're going to hopefully finally address. We gathered a bunch of stuff from the village and put it on the auction. The village put $5,200.71 in the kitty. We did some stuff for the police department, sold squad, and other stuff we had laying around. We assisted a ball company. This doesn't usually happen, but when they dug it, the headstones were too close, and from one front to back. So we ended up going out on an emergency call, heating up all the ground and trying to chip it all out so we could get this in. The burial was at 10, and they called us at about 8:40. So we had a little bit of a time going at that. We haven't had to do that before. We took out 42 tons of salt. We saw the office door and the clerk's office. We'll try to finish that up tomorrow. We've been out 5 times. Our salt shed passed inspection. I contacted Dan Steffes from Badger Well Killing. Lions Club requested 4 picnic tables, those are delivered. PD asked us to pick up some stuff on 164 between I-43 and the Vernon Fire Department. It was cardboard and debris that was taken care of. Collaborated with Will Hine on the MS4 because I'm not sure yet what's going to happen with occasion site. The DNR is dragging their feet a little bit on this site. Completed all the retrack for the village, so if you're not familiar with that, which most of you aren't, everything that's recyclable, from the stuff that goes in your recycle things to everything we recycle, the dumpster, everything, I have to keep track of all that stuff, and that was all done. I was able to get that accomplished. It's due tomorrow. I got it done ahead of time. Roadway limits are going to go on Monday. 7 tons, 14,000 pounds. Here's something I want to also mention. The chief talked about vehicles and stuff like that. I was at the Washington County Public Works Association meeting yesterday. There's about 40 members there, which are all heads of all the DPWs and stuff. Some guys are in charge of purchasing vehicles and parts and stuff like that. And if any one of the departments in the future is looking at purchasing a unit, I would suggest by the end of this year, you have that unit ordered, because you're not going to see anything until 2024. And I heard that yesterday. That was pretty much the talk of the conference, is how far out this stuff is. So it's just something to think about. No, I don't know what the squad vehicles, but I know I talked to the chief. His stuff's coming out for one. Can you cancel those orders if you want? Once you got it ordered?
You got it ordered.
So
Got to sign the contract.
just something to be aware of. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Eric. Oh, our test well drilling.
Test well drilling. So
I know they were working on it this week.
yeah, so that did not start off real well. The first one they drilled was what we're going to call a dry well. They got into way too much clay, and he put the hooks on at 125 feet. They drilled the second one today. They are down about 100 feet. They're bringing a pump in tomorrow. They're going to pump. Right now they figure they're doing 200 to 300 gallons a minute, but I want them to pump that and pump it out, heavy, run the water through there. Tomorrow they're going to move 200 yards to the southwest of that and put the other one in. So
you said tomorrow they're pumping as well? They're going to do that pump test?
They're bringing a generator in. They're going to pump off of that one well.
You said it's at how many feet right now?
100.
Thank you.
100, 110, somewhere in there. So they put out and they slide it back up and they have a screen in there.
Okay.
They thought that was promising. One thing that I need to tell you is that since that field has had fertilizer on it, there's nitrates in the ground. Whether or not they're down that far, we don't know. This is not the company that would do our well. Everything passes, they're not that company, but he did talk to me about another company that does an excellent job. And he said, those are the people. He said, but the main thing is get your test well done, obviously, to make sure that we can get the volume of the water.
Yep.
So these would, instead of being, two of them spread apart, if this other one pans out, they'll be fairly close to one another. So if you needed to have 2 pumping stations, you could.
So the one test well failed.
I won't say it failed, it just needed to pan out. They got into too much clay, and clay is impermeable, so the water doesn't get.
How far were we from the first hole that we did last?
500 yards, maybe more.
Was this along the interstate, or was this the one that went down towards the south and east?
Actually, towards Michelle subdivision back there.
Yeah.
Way back there.
Yeah.
So that was the one that failed.
That's the one that failed?
Yes. So if you know where the billboard is on the highway, and if you look directly to the south, that one's in line with that, the one that we're getting water out of right now.
That's right.
It's not near, you can't be near the drain system. I mean, it's a retention pond there, so it's south of there quite a bit.
That's what I was just going to ask.
Yeah. So.
Here's grass on number 2 and 3.
And we still have, they gave us 6 locations initially, and we picked the best 3 on their recommendation.
Right.
So if we Depending on
You can go through.
timing and how deep they go, we might get a fourth hole plug just to
And
check.
that's what I was gonna mention, is that he pulled up early on that one that was just, I was there and it wasn't doing anything. A lot of aggregate there, a lot of stone, but a lot of clay also. So if there is some stuff left, I talked to him about that yesterday and I talked to him about it today. He said he's gonna see where he's at. And if we have to punch another one, we talked about a desirable location. And he's gonna see where they're at. What they're worried about right now is what's coming on Saturday with all the heat. 70 degrees, and after that it's gonna start to cool off a little bit, but you know, you're out there with a 75,000 pound truck.
Yeah.
It's gonna rain too.
We don't want it to sink. So I told him if he wanted to, he could bring the vehicles down and park them here for the time being. Tell me the DPW, there's cameras and everything. And he's really trying to get these holes done as soon as possible, which I understand that it was an option for him. So
Is there a chance that we'll be done with this week, or no? Done tomorrow? No.
well, they're punching the third one tomorrow.
Yeah, if you think about it, if they're pumping from 2 and punching 3, I mean, we could have a pretty good lay of the land by the end of the day.
Right.
But 2 and 3 are only 200 yards apart. I'm wondering what your drawdown is gonna affect one versus the other.
Well, that's why when they do that,
They're the experts, I'm just
What's the
wondering.
recommended?
So
Distance
one of
apart.
them would just be a backup, anyway. You wouldn't
Correct.
have both running at the same time.
right.
If
If
one
Correct.
fails,
If one fails, then
then
number
because
two
you're
goes
so
in.
close.
What's the minimum
Would it be-
gallons you need?
We, well,
Fail too.
I'd like to see a minimum of 500.
I guess what you're saying.
And then the other one at 1,000, but if you do 2 and it's at, you know, about 500 each, you can do that, you can run 2 at the same time. The thing that I like is this guy's approachable, and he's easy to talk to, and will listen to or do what we want to do, not like the last one where they pulled everything out and it was all done in a day, 2 days, so. I did tell Warren that and I think I told you were aware, the guy's really approachable, so. He's there, it's all business, but I mean, it's getting done what needs to get done.
Good.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4F, report from professional services.
Nothing fine?
Excellent. Along item 5, consideration and approval of minutes from the Wednesday, February 16th, 2022 village board meeting.
Motion to discuss the third reading.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Section 3, approval of bills. Michelle's the second one?
I'm not sure who.
Yeah, she is, based on my notes. Jeff can't be,
You can't do both?
no, you know, it's frowned upon. That's the only correction I had to this.
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, approval of bills. We did not have a finance meeting, so we're going through them now.
We're good.
You went through them all?
Yeah.
Okay, I did too, before the meeting.
$83,882.83. And I will make a motion to pay the bills in that amount.
Supposed to have been-
Any further discussion?
Is that 83, 822, 83?
883,882.83.
Got it.
Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Bills are paid. Item 7, old business, discussion, consideration, and possible action on the emergency management plan for the Village of Big Bend. Update, Tony.
I now have the new platform for the shortened emergency operations plan that Waukesha County has adapted, so I'm working on it. I'll have it by the time that we meet for public safety, and we should have be able to review it and take a vote next meeting.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Yep.
Item 7B, update regarding Cajun Fill site in general.
There's pictures in the packet.
Yeah, there's Will Hines' latest report, because we did have a thaw. We're not gonna know much until the temperatures warm up and we start growing grass again. And I think that's all the DNR's waiting for on that, so. Any questions? 7C, update regarding Collier test boring for the municipal well in TID. I think Eric handled all of that already, so if nobody has any further questions, we'll keep moving. Item 8, new business. A, consideration and approval of the following operators license applications. I, Zingers Club Shamrock, Andrea Rover. Chief?
Nothing that would eliminate her from having a license, and as she already has a provisional that would be in effect for the
I'll make a motion to approve. Okay.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item B, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding a potential police and fire commission legal budget. Mike?
Good evening, everybody. Mike Wanzel from the Police Fire Commission. Just real quick, I'm going to go over briefly what the commission's duties are. From the state Wisconsin handbook, our duties are to appoint, suspend, or remove chief of police, fire, services departments, approve appointments made by the chiefs, including promotions of the subordinates, approve and control competitive examinations used to hire people for both police and fire, approve the list as eligibility list for them to then hire off of the chiefs. We have the authority to suspend chief of a department or subordinates pending the filing and hearing of charges against them. We can initiate charges against the chief of a department or any subordinate. Since the Police and Fire Commission hears and decides charges that should be avoided if possible, if it is necessary, Police and Fire Commission should seek legal advice to ensure proper mechanisms are put in place to ensure the person charged receives due process. We also hear charges filed against the chief of a department or subordinate, making findings and determinations and impose penalties. We also hear appeals of disciplinary actions that are provided by the chiefs of the departments. Based on that, the scope of our authority, the Police and Fire Commission has recently come upon some disciplinary measures that were brought to us in the form of complaints. And because of those disciplinary measures, we did our research and found that as a Police and Fire Commission, we need to have our own legal counsel to advise us moving forward. It's my understanding from some of the research that has been done that the village council would not be allowed to represent us in one of our main duties, which is disciplinary matters. We've been advised by the League of Municipalities also, and research going through other police and fire commissions, that they all say the same thing. We need our own legal counsel. To do that, obviously, we need a funding source to do that. We would have to find somebody that is familiar with with employment law, and we would have to go through the village to get them under contract and that type of thing. Unfortunately, it's all going to take money. While the members of the Police and Fire Commission work very hard to understand the laws surrounding the matters, at the end of the day, we're just citizens like you and I. We don't have specialized training to get into these legal matters and not get ourselves out into trouble by doing so. We do have we want to make sure what we do is right for both the employees and protect the village from future legal ramifications. Ultimately, at the end of the day, a village our size does not need a police and fire commission, and ultimately the village board and or the committees of the village board could take care of the current actions that we take, such as hiring, firing, disciplinary measures. So we're coming to you saying this is what we have to do to move forward with the Police and Fire Commission. We really need our own source of counsel. I think Joe has had discussion with Attorney Schoberg, am I correct, about that? And if you can please impart some wisdom upon us from the legal sense of what we're asking for.
Yeah, I may not have been involved in those conversations because there's two Schobers. But I can tell you that the role you play is really the judge's role.
that is the judge, they're the decision makers. And there's going to be a complainant of some kind, whether it be a citizen or whether it be a member, chief, who seeks disciplinary action. So there's this role as a decision maker, the judge and the jury, i.e. the commission, and then there's the role of a prosecutor who has some sort of complaint about something that's happened. And those people about whom they're complaining, they're liable to have to get their own counsel. But the commission can't act as both the judge and the prosecutor. They have to be impartial, and they need their own separate counsel. A lot of times when these issues arise, the chief might call us and say, here's the problem, what do you think? Well, I think as soon as that's happened, our role becomes to represent the complaint, where the commission has to be the ultimate judge. So we can't represent the commission. So I think that what they're requesting is appropriate. There will be some situations where you need outside counsel and where we've already committed by talking to what essence is the complainant.
Now, if the village board and or its commission or committees take over that role from the police and fire commission, how would that legal situation look, again, with the village attorney being involved?
Well, if they're to serve as the judge and jury, which they would, whoever that is, whether it be the board or committee or the commission, there has to be a separation between the judge and decision maker and whoever's bringing the complaint. They're two different positions.
So you're saying the same outcome would still be needed as far as separate legal
As far
counsel?
as, yes, as far
Regardless
as
of it's being the
Right.
police and fire commission or if the board was to take ownership of it.
And our understanding is when you get into disciplinary measures, there is a certain timeline that you have to move forward. And for us to be able to come back to you in a timely fashion and to secure funds to then move forward with our legal representation, it may also be beneficial just for you to have the control of that within committee and with boards to cut that timeline down. Just throwing ideas out there for everybody to think about and for a discussion to ensue, because again, half of what the Police and Fire Commission really truly is set up to do, which would be disciplinary measures if and when we would ever get into that position, we're not really able to do that at this point in time without having a separate legal counsel.
Would this separate legal counsel be only retained whenever it would be necessary for a potential disciplinary action to occur, or would this be more of that this legal counsel would have to be involved more on a regular basis, like during meetings or anything else of that nature?
Again, defer. I would imagine absolutely with disciplinary actions. I'm not sure if we could still go through the village's legal to answer our everyday questions.
Well, my knee-jerk reaction on it is that if the issue involves something other than a disciplinary proceeding, where due process of law has to attach, and you need this distinction, I think they can come to us and we can answer those questions. But when you get into the disciplinary arena, there has to be some separation between the judges and the prosecutor.
Thank you.
And unfortunately, I cannot throw any ideas, numbers. Hopefully, it's a fund that we would not have to tap into. But we do need to have some reassurance that that money is there either for us or for you going forward in the future as the village board and its committees, that if there would be a disciplinary process that has to take place, somebody will have to have separate legal counsel that's skilled in employment law.
This hasn't been to personnel and finance yet as a topic?
No, because it was just up on today's agenda. We didn't have a quorum to meet.
Fair.
Yeah, this is gonna be a needed budget line item regardless of police and fire or village board doing it. Something you just,
It sounds like it. It sounds like it's, we got to do it
put some
regardless.
seed money in the bank and, right.
So that was our intent tonight, was to bring this to everybody's attention, that it is something that needs to be considered.
Makes sense.
Thank you, Mike.
You bet.
I appreciate
Thank you
it.
for everybody for your time.
questions on it?
I would assume that putting a legal counsel on retainer would come with a retainer fee, whether we would use them or not.
Yep.
And that's just something to consider when we're looking at potential budget questions, to know that's, kind of what's coming on it.
I think I'd agree with that. Well, it's going to be discussed in the future, but I would anticipate this council would be utilized only on an as-needed basis for those situations where you have to have separate counsel. And I don't know really how often that's going to happen. And if a question comes up which is not in that realm of a due process hearing, we'll still answer those questions. So that would have to be looked at. I don't think I have the answer for it, but
I think the weird process that I'm struggling with in my head is that you work for the village, not for the chiefs, essentially. So how can you represent one of them on the village's dollar? We can't pay both legal fees when it comes to it. Like, you wouldn't be able to represent one side and we're paying the other side's attorney as well.
oh, that's,
You know what I mean? That doesn't sound right.
I think I understand that. Well, there would have to be a distinction there. We can agree with what you're saying. If I missed the point you're saying.
Well, her point is, why would we be on the hook for both legal representation, right?
Right.
Is the
Yes.
gist of it. You know, if there's a situation where a chief comes forward and needs legal,
Yeah.
we have our legal, but our legal can't be used, why should we have to pay for that legal? Now, again, yeah, I mean, police and fire falls out underneath the village as a whole, so it all boils up to the same top umbrella, you know, it's all underneath that.
We have to legally defend.
Yeah,
our
so
employees.
I think we're stuck paying for both
Whether
anyways.
we're prosecuting and defending them,
Yeah.
or, yeah, it's just our,
But
Like
you
you-
wouldn't. Like, so if I was trying to challenge my employer, I would have to retain my own attorney.
That's different.
Well,
That's different. So he had made a comment earlier that if there's a complaint against somebody, whoever it's against, they have to bring their own representation. The village is not funding that piece of it.
I'm gonna throw a kink in this if I could just have the board's attention for 1 second.
Where's she at?
God forbid Don ends up in an officer-involved shooting or any of his officers, and the officer wants to retain an attorney. The village is going to be on the hook for that attorney as long as it comes back as justified. So,
But that's not our situation
No.
here.
right, but I'm
No, that
just
makes
I'm
sense.
just
Based
saying.
on that
But,
situation, that makes sense.
correct, but different situations are gonna
It'll be
dictate.
case by case too, but if it's,
But you wouldn't have an employment attorney either for that case.
Yes and no. You'd have an employment/legal attorney.
You have a legal attorney to help defend their justification in shooting, not their employment.
I think that, let me say this, Michelle, I think that this is like the courthouse in Waukesha. There's a judge there that's paid by the county, and there's a prosecutor there that's paid by the county. They're distinct offices, and they have to operate that way, but the county's paying them. So I think that's analogous to what we
yeah,
have
no,
here.
I think that's a good way to describe it.
Sorry about that, but
No,
that's
makes
the way it is.
sense.
And don't forget, Mike, they have a corporation counsel on top of that too.
Well, yeah, for civil matters, and
Correct.
there's the criminal guys in the DA's office.
So it's basically the difference between private employment and public employment. I would assume,
Yep.
just to put it in layman's terms.
Yep. So we'll need to get some quotes, hourly rates
Yeah, just
from.
an idea of what the retainer budgetary amount should be,
And what other communities might set aside for that?
Right.
and maybe recommendations for some attorneys that are up that alley, you know,
Mhm.
their specialty.
So who's
It
on
is.
that?
It is a specialized area.
Yeah,
It
for
deals
sure.
with not only employment law, which is special, but also municipal employment law, which has some unique
I'll have the
twists.
clerk work on it. Should get some numbers together.
Short draw. Thanks. There you go.
Oh,
All right, item 8C, discussion, consideration, and possible action on rural home cemetery expansion. Eric?
So unfortunately, business has been extremely well at the cemetery. We've crossed this bridge before, as Mike will tell you, with American Transmission Company. I'm down to 180 plots And at the rate that we're selling them right now, 5 or 10 a month, we're short. I would like to develop the west side, the Jacoby west side. Problem we have is the power lines. And if we don't do something there, we're gonna lose probably a good half to 3/4 just of the west side that we put a culvert in to put a road down to the tower. So this is not a job for me. I'm not qualified to do legal stuff with them, but something has to be done. We've already had that survey, but now it's time to, it's going to be delayed. David and Goliath type fight, but we have to do something to retain that property. And if they do retain that property and come all the way down, you can take half of your cemetery that you have, and we can't do anything with it. I'm asking this now because we would need to get a road in there as soon as possible. Last time we talked with them, we told them we'd do the road and we would put flat stones in there, flat headstones. You would not be able to put monuments. But the negotiations need to start as soon as possible.
Can I kick in with some history on that? I'll keep it brief. Hearing no objection. This has been an ongoing issue for a long time. The village owns that route, but the ATC has an easement through there. And the easement, in essence, the language is sort of common, and that is, and the situation is common. We can't unreasonably interfere with their use of their easement area. So the question is, whatever our activities are they unreasonably interfering with their easement rights? And there were discussions a couple of years ago with the ATC, and they were essentially, we were trying to get some sort of height limitation on the monument itself and some sort of plant limitation on the height of it. And there's certain requirements of setbacks from the wires. I don't know just what they are, but they're horizontal and vertical. And we tried to reach some sort of agreement, and it seemed like there was some willingness to talk about it at the lower level, but ATC, I think I was in their office at least once, maybe twice. I forget the name of the lady I was working with, trying to convince her to reach an agreement that we would have some reasonable use of that area. And went upstairs and eventually just stymied. They're taking a position, you can't do anything with that. And it's not only the height of the structures or plants that we can put in there, but it's also a matter of getting access to it. In an emergency situation, they said that they can't be dragging over a bunch of gravestones, or if they're in their way, they can't get in there to do their work. So that's just where it ended. It died at that point.
How long ago was that latest? What was the last time that discussion you were involved with?
I don't know, say 3 years ago.
2016 to 2017.
Oh.
Here's part of that. So they're going to blow everything up they can at us to make us not want to do this, okay? And I'm just asking you guys to move forward with something, because I'm not going to have any place to bury people. And that we have the 7 acres behind, we have the 2 acres to the side. And what they came up with was, well, they need to get access in there, so we said we'd give them a road. There's nobody out there that's going up there and gonna hook 2 wires together on that. It's 136,000 kV, okay? So if they're coming in with a cat or with a big winch to go tower to tower. They're not gonna have stuff laying where we are, all right? Now, my next question is, it's their easement on our property, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what are the ramifications if we tell them pick your stuff up and move?
They have the right to be there.
Yeah,
We
can't revoke the easement.
Their rights are superior to ours. In legal language, the easement rights are called the dominant estate. They're the dominant estate. They're the ones that control. The owner of the fee simple interest underneath the ground has the servient estate, it's called.
Okay.
Their easement is the trump card. So as I see it, there's 2 ways to do this. Well, number one, to try to get them to do something that's reasonable, whatever that is.
Mary Carpenter's not there anymore. I know the lady you're talking about. We've had talks with her. She's retired from there, but the attitude might not have changed, but something has to be done.
Yeah.
Having deep six it, having put the thing underground from that thing all the way down to to the river thing, I don't know, but we're losing, you know, I think we figured out about 800 spots. So you're talking $800,000.
What was your second point? You said you were-
Okay, no, I think that, number one, we could try to negotiate with them. Number two, we could file a lawsuit to protect judgment action to see what the judge thinks about it. Now, I considered that, and I literally called people experts all over the United States. I found one guy down in Texas. Now, you have to understand, ATC is in this business. They've got the experts, not only on staff, but they have meetings, and when I ended up with people in Madison that are in whatever engineering discipline this is, they all have relationships with ATC, social or whatever else. There's a dead end. One guy in Texas I talked to, as soon as he found out who was involved in it, no interest. So this question, well, I guess the two options, as I see it, after negotiations and effort to try to find a way to resolve this thing on some fair basis. The two things are, one, that we start a lawsuit and ask the judge to declare rights. I'm not sure, just off the record, who we've got to testify to this. We need somebody to testify. I wouldn't even start a lawsuit unless I had one or two experts, because there's things called frivolous lawsuits, and when you need experts to testify to things, you can't start a lawsuit without having the expert. A fellow I knew at one point, an attorney, a good attorney, a medical malpractice case, he kept the case going even though he didn't have the expert, got kicked out in trial, and at the end of it, there was a number of defendants with good attorneys. The judge assessed $750,000 of attorney's fees against that, my friend. So I'm not filing a lawsuit unless I've got a basis, and we're not going to have the village or us pay money to them. We need proof. So anyway, it would be us file a lawsuit, and if we get down to the same problem, we bury a couple people there, or whatever, make some use of it, and let them sue us. But then we still end up with that court in Waukesha, somebody with a black robe, and maybe a jury, even at the end, to decide whether our use unreasonably interferes with their easement rights. And those are facts. Judges or the juries decide that, or if the jury's waived, then the judge decides it. But I ran into a wall on that, and I spent a lot of time on it, actually.
So did I, as you know, Mike, but here's the deal. This is for the board to decide, and I'm telling you right now, we're running out of places to get people. And if you decide to develop the bottom part of it, that field there is rented from us, and it's, you know, on that basis, but you're not going to get all that stuff turned around in 1 year to get that set up to start burying people. We plan on going west. We've got the infrastructure there, except for the road, which we were planning putting in the summer. But again, there's 800 spots there.
How long planning will it take to go the other way, the other direction you said south?
We have to go north.
Oh, sorry, north, yeah.
There's a lot of work to be done there. But just you understand, if you look at the wires, how they come like this on the part, then they turn, they follow the whole part there, and you lose at least, 3/8 of that whole bottom section. And you can't really do much on the top. And just so everybody understands, this isn't like the first time I've sounded this alarm. I mean, we did this back in 16 and 17 and stuff like that. And we did go someplace with it, and then it kind of got put on the back burner, but now it needs to be, front and center.
I heard at one time they were thinking about replacing those big mast structures with monopoles, and I had hoped that would come sooner than later because it would reduce that distance of setback.
And that's what we talked about with Mary Carpenter at the time, about slimming down the monopoles, and after they did the stuff down the right of way, they were going to change that over, and I've never seen anything since then.
I wonder if, with the cell phone tower relocations off of their structures, if that may have something to do with potential replacement in the future with monopoles, but that would be easy to find out through, basically they would have to file with the state for being able to do that structural difference. Or we could just flat out ask them. I tend to agree with you. There's three infrastructures that are very difficult once they have easements to be able to bring back on. One is overhead power lines or telecommunication lines, buried pipelines and railroads. Can't pick them up and move them, and once you get the easement, it's there. No matter how hard they try, I've been told time and time again that those three structures rule limit, and I don't know if we're going to have much success with it. I don't have very much confidence offhandedly right now to say that anything we throw out at the ATC is going to give us an inch.
Hence why I asked about the north thing, because I think that's
Yeah.
probably the only viable option. We're talking an 800-pound gorilla that we have zero experts that are probably willing to help us fight.
So my best approach would be negotiation first, see if we can work
Sure,
something
it
out.
doesn't hurt.
You know
It
what
doesn't
I'm
hurt to
saying?
keep the negotiations going, but I think we gotta start planning the
But
north piece
we-
too.
yes,
If there's a long lead time on that, it won't hurt.
Right, just so everybody understands, I am at what we did last year in burials for a whole year. As of Saturday, I will equal that already in March.
So you do a whole year in 3 months.
Yes.
Okay.
So best case scenario, if we have 10 plots a month, we've got 18 months.
18
We've
months.
got a year and a half.
I was guessing more like a year, but
Yeah.
I mean, Elena and Laura are getting extremely well at doing deeds. And it's unfortunate, but you have to understand that some of the cemeteries in Milwaukee and stuff, they're getting filled and people are moving west.
Is there a cost to taking care of the land to the north, and do you have money in the cemetery?
There's $100,000, I think, in the cemetery fund. And we can do a portion of it, tree removal and get some of that stuff and that, but you're gonna need an actual planner out there to get this up to date. But the problem is until when you put that fill in there, it's gotta sit a year or two to
Before
settle
you can touch it.
before you can do anything.
Yeah.
And you gotta put a road in and stuff like that. I mean, there's nothing cheap about this, but
tell me how many grave sites can you get in that once it's improved, roughly?
I'd have to look. I've been really concentrated on the stuff to the west because that's where we plan on going.
But if we knew this was a challenge, why would we plan to go there?
Pardon me?
If we knew that going to the west was this big of a challenge, why did we continue that versus looking at the north?
Well, we have looked at the north. The problem is you've got probably a good 25-foot drop from where the cemetery is now to the next section down. That's going to take a lot of excavation work to get that all filled in. And you're going to have to put a road in there.
And it has to get filled in and you have to bring it up? You can't leave it at where it's at?
Have you been there at all?
Not up that way, no.
What I would tell you all is drive through the cemetery and take a look at it. It's a significant drop off there. And yes, you have to address that somehow. The thought was putting, crematoriums in there or some of the other stuff. I don't think we're ready for anything like that. Right now, I got in trouble for land and we need to find as much as we can to keep things going.
No, if there's gonna be negotiations, which is fine, I just think nothing's changed since the last go-around.
Unless
And
it's
if we-
Mary's gone, right?
Mary's gone.
That's a change.
Well,
Yes.
it could be.
Could be good or bad, I'm not
I
saying.
mean, I would
No,
think,
right.
Easement laws haven't gone.
I did all I could to find an expert. If we're gonna change something here, it would be nice to have someone on our side who knows a lot more than we do about it, and maybe that change is gonna result in a different outcome. I would predict the outcome already, based on the prior history. Changing one person, I don't think is gonna make a difference to APC's position. But, and I did what I could. I spent a lot of time all over the US trying to find somebody, but my efforts may not have been as well directed as they could be.
Can we approach
It's an
them?
electrical engineering issue.
Can we approach them with a better laid plan? Not just go in and say, hey, we want land.
We want to use said land.
We
We
wanna
don't
use
want
this
land, we want to use.
part
Well,
of
it is our land.
Yeah, we want to use some of the easement area.
you know, if you go in with a laid out plan saying, you know, grave sites will be X feet away from wherever.
Give your path where you can bring rig.
Surface level stones only,
Plants no higher than X.
yeah,
You could try it.
I mean, you've
Again,
already got
it's
some.
still say pursuing
rules
the
and
north
everything.
stuff though. You gotta get planning on the north.
I would think you'd have to start on the north regardless of the
Well,
outcome
they
of this.
actually need to start on both, but,
Yeah.
you know, we're just getting to the point where last year, I think I told you I had like 312. I'm down to less than 160 right now.
She said 180.
I was just gonna say, you said
160,
160.
somewhere in that area.
Come on, man.
Some of the areas that we're gonna try to push in, you know, 20 graves aren't making a difference when each one of them's got 16, and it's not that much. But we're gonna try to open up some other areas that weren't platted and use those in the meantime if it comes to that. But it's just that, you know, I don't know, Lena, how many, we sold 5 this month, we sold 10 last month?
6 this month.
6 this month, excuse me.
6 in February.
This month is March.
Or March,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, March, not
Well,
March. February.
February.
He's got 2 on the counter to sign
Right. Plus I got another guy coming in
tomorrow morning.
tomorrow morning.
So we're looking to actually try to raise up the north to the level of the southern plot areas. I mean, like to
Or make it less steep, or-
It's significant, I mean,
Or are we just trying to lessen the drop? You can't raise it that much.
no, we're not trying to raise it, but from the bottom to the top, I'll bet you there's at least, I mean, it's gotta be 20 some feet, 30 feet.
So all we're looking to do is to get a road and take the elevation down by road and leave that where it's at elevation wise.
That's in the bottom part of it, right, but you're gonna be filling from, if you drive in the cemetery in the West Drive,
Yeah.
that's a significant drop. And I ask everybody, if you get a chance, but Don's been through there, he'll tell you, it's a pretty significant drop over there. So that needs to be addressed.
My gut's telling me you gotta start addressing that section of cemetery as soon as you can this spring, while we work on the other one, because the other one could take years.
Well, I'm
At least
hoping not.
at least we have plan A going.
Right. Well, just, if you're gonna plan on doing that, then we're gonna have to at least get the word out there, we need some fill over there, it's gonna have to be clean fill. Obviously, we don't want concrete stuff in there, but, I mean, it's
Right.
something that cemetery board has to take up and then bring it back to the village board. I think what I'll do is we'll drone that area probably maybe next week. I know you guys don't have a meeting until April, but I'll send you guys all a copy of the drone flight and see what it looks like. So they're not come just wait to the meeting to look at it or discuss it, at least you can take a look at what's out there.
What about the cul-de-sac off of Kunzeldorf, that subdivision?
Yes.
Can we gain access to the lower section that way or the northern
I think
section?
we can. The problem is that's getting low in ground there and there's high groundwater. So if you notice, all them homes in there are higher up than the court.
I know somebody that lives right down there.
What's that?
I know somebody that lives down there. Yeah, just an option. Instead of putting our own road from the south to the north, maybe we.
Well, you're still gonna need to do that because you can't, you're gonna have to put a roadway in to get out of there one way or another. And we have traffic problems now with just the horseshoe we have. And if you're gonna expand that, there's gonna be a system of roads in there because you can't have people carry the, casket, 50, 60 yards, that's not gonna work.
Sounds like we have to dig into options.
So,
Any other questions for Eric or the attorney? Thanks, sir.
Who's doing what?
Yeah, who's doing what? Who's approaching HEC?
I think I'll leave that in Mike's hands. He's been there, done that. He doesn't have to repeat himself too much.
Well, I have to have negotiations. Well,
We have to get a
we're
plan.
not- We're not going for an expert, we're just going to.
Try to open a dialogue and say, hey, this is what we're hoping to do.
But I think someone needs to come with that plan before. Mike
We've
does.
got to get you a plan first, and I think we need Eric's help on that because you're already familiar with the lay of the land.
I think as long as we can creep a little bit into it and like.
We need some help from the cemetery board and Eric to get what they deem as reasonable
Yeah, I wouldn't say go all the way into their easement, I would approach it slowly.
Well, what we offered them originally is put a 20-foot road in from L down to the tower. Everything they do is with an elevated truck and or crane system or a winch system to pull those big lines. It's not like they're all 40 feet in each side of it. I understand that's where their easement is, but.
Well, there's an elevation drop in there, correct?
Yes,
That
sir.
elevation continues to go on over towards the west, right in front of the tower. So one of the strategies I would say is to ask them how they would access that tower, because I think we could probably convince them, or they should convince themselves that they would come in off of Kunzendorf to access that because of that drop.
We've already done that.
All right.
I mean, it's something that Mike wants to bring up again. I'm more than happy to, do that and work with it, but.
But I think that was 5 to 6 years ago, put in the plans, like that your plan would be that they would access it from what Tony just suggested, and that you would want to take some of the easement and put in, it's not that they don't have access to it, it's
So
still
again,
flat.
I think if we fly a drone over that, and send everybody, email everybody that, they'll get a better idea of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the, over at Google Maps, it's like you don't get an idea of elevation changes
Right.
because it's 100% bird's eye view, top down. So
Right.
to get the drone where you're getting a side profile,
Right.
that would definitely help.
Yeah. So I'll try to get that done next week then. Just want you guys to know that
We gotta act on this, I get it.
Yeah.
We're gonna need the help of the cemetery board though to come up with a good plan so Mike can approach him for negotiating. Two good plans out of the cemetery board, one for the west and one for the north.
I think I get Public Works involved in that also because we're short
Sure.
on cemetery board. John Sonover passed away, he was a member of that.
Right.
But
Okay.
How long do you think it would be for the plan? Well, how much, a couple weeks?
I'd like to get this thing moving along quickly. Again, I never thought that we'd be in this position, filling up this much of this quick, but we are.
Well, I'll say it this way then, if I don't have the plan within X time period, I'll call you. What's the X?
There's a cemetery board meeting on the 21st.
There is? Okay. Thought it was the 26th.
21st, 26th is Saturday.
Okay. So I'll try to get something going there, but I think what I'll do is, including you, Mike, I'll send you the drone video of this, that you can take a look at it.
Well, I've driven the road and gone there for cemetery. Lee Oker's wife was the last time I was there. So, all right, end of the month, I'll contact you if I haven't seen it.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Item 8B, discussion, consideration, possible action on employee evaluation forms. In your packet, you have two sets of employee evaluation forms. One is to be filled out by a supervisor, and the other one is to be filled out by the employee. Designed, approved by Finance and Personnel, and recommended for your approval. Our goal is to have these out to the department heads ASAP. They can hand them out to employees, do the self-evaluations, turn back into the department heads by May 1st. And then the department heads have from May 1st to the middle of June to do all the reviews of their people, as well as the village board reviewing department heads for their appropriate fire and police commissioner, public works commissioner.
Can you just restate the dates clearly?
May 1st,
May 1st is what?
Yeah.
self-evals are due back to the supervisor or department heads.
15th one 3 weeks ago.
And middle of June, June 15th. All real evaluations need to be done. That doesn't mean they can't be done sooner.
They wouldn't tell me whether or not I had any more like they, and I feel that.
The forms are, I believe, identical, correct?
Yeah,
Michelle? Outside of some wording
Except for
to
the-
apply.
Like core value objective section.
Right.
Would assume these have been taken off some standard forms somewhere.
John Lanahan wrote it.
I kind of told him from several,
Okay.
but yeah.
Mr. President, are they volunteer or mandatory?
Michelle.
Evals
What do
need
we
to
say?
be- evals for employees need to be done yearly.
No, self.
A self eval,
Are they?
you can turn in a blank one if you like, it doesn't,
That's
It
what I'm
could
saying.
hurt you.
I'm saying, are they voluntary or are they mandatory?
A self-eval
self-eval
would be voluntary.
however, as a leader, I would pay you for it. So, I would turn it in because
I'm
you should
just-
toot your own horn.
The question's gonna come up.
Right.
No, it's good clarification. It's in their best interest to do it, but there's nothing specifically saying it's required to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
These are commonly used for an employee to see what their strength, what they consider to be their strengths.
You don't
and
have,
weaknesses.
Tony, you don't have to, I understand it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it from the questions that are gonna
Playing
come
devil's
up.
advocate.
I would say it's mandatory and your employee can turn in a blank one if they don't want to fill it out. And
No,
then you would
not-
get
and I'm Michelle, you're gonna
improvement
hate
from
me.
me. Or unacceptable.
Do you have them in policy or not?
You can put it on here that's mandatory,
Okay, I'm just,
so.
So we're going to change my evaluation form to this one from the one that we already have. We have our own. We do not do a self-evaluation. We do the supervisor, the sergeant does the evaluations on everybody. I do one on him. If they have a opinion that they don't agree with this evaluation that we do on them, they are entitled and encouraged to file a matter of stating any objections that they have to the eval that the sergeant does.
So you do an evaluation on them, and then they have the ability to basically comment back on it?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
what I'm hearing on that?
Yes, sir. That's
Yes.
how most
Okay.
law enforcement agencies do it.
Okay. Why would you not give them the chance to do a self-evaluation if they want to? I mean, it's...
They can if
encourage
they
them
want
to
to, if
take
they
it
want to
themselves.
object, if they want to, because our evaluation has strengths, weaknesses,
Do you have metrics in yours?
a number, no. A number metrics? Or-
Any number of metrics. Like that it takes them X amount of time to complete writing their citations, or they haven't
No, because
written their citation within 3 days of,
No performance metrics.
like, yeah. That's what I'm looking for.
it would be if, well, citations are just because, it would be a bad example because citations are written as soon as you give the
Reports
defendant.
for the
right.
citations, I guess.
And the
Sorry.
narratives are done.
Using the wrong terms.
The narratives are usually done the same night by everybody, except for OWIs, or sometimes they're done the next day if it's, trying to save overtime or something like that. But for us, our reports gotta be done in a timely manner just because they gotta be sent up to their court, either here or in the municipal court or to the DA's office.
if it's a lockup.
They're mandatory that they gotta be in within 24 hours of just going to.
Right,
DA's
and that,
office
like, your
and-
metric would be, yes, they've met that standard, or no, they haven't met that standard. Here's how
Right,
they fall
that
out.
would be areas of improvement, officer XYZ needs to make sure he gets his reports in a timely manner. But that would be being addressed when it occurs immediately, because we wouldn't wait 6 months or a year to address that stuff, because that's just not gonna work. So I would request that the police department be allowed to do their evaluations on the form we do, and clarify them with our fire and police commission, as long as they're still in existence.
Why would they not be in existence?
Well, because it
Well,
might
because we're
comment.
talking about switching it over to maybe the board.
I don't think it was ever decided or even
No, I said,
commented
yeah.
that they're not going
I
to
said,
be in
yeah.
existence.
No, he's saying if it changed.
If it changes, obviously it'll go to finance. Right now, it'll go to the fire and police commission. I love my fire and police commission. They get this, I'll say something to Mike and to Ellen, and if Mark was still here. We have, in this village, in the last year and a half, come up with a very good commission that has policies now that mirror these state policies, and our hiring system of hiring officers so far has worked very seemed perfectly, actually, including them rejecting people who tested in for the position, and they actually came up with the same opinion as we did in the interviews when they gave their opinion. And I don't think I even ever told them this. Their opinion and their rejection matched my opinion and my rejection. So I think we have a good rapport and an understanding of what we need in this village, for at least on the police department side, the way it's going now. So I pray that we keep them and we keep going with it. So I was never saying they weren't going to be here or that they said that. I said, yeah, because that is part of the thing. If it's going to be turned over to finance or personnel, or if it's going to continue in the same manner it is.
I don't even think we had any of that discussion. That's really kind of the first I'm hearing of that.
No, Mike brought it up.
Mike-
With the
Mike
legal
did not.
counsel thing, like, if we were to dissolve the police and fire, the responsibility would push up to the board, and the board would be
We
responsible
never
for that.
talked about actually dissolving them or any.
No, but
No.
he alluded to the possibility that the legal counsel would still have to follow no matter what, so that's what it's bearing based on what was said earlier, so.
I would think that it's in best interest that everyone is on the one eval form to be consistent across the village.
I agree with it. It needs to be consistent, not treat one department differently than the other.
Because I think any performance metrics or anything that you're currently evaluating staff on would be able to fall into this form.
Well, my comment would be, I think we should let the department heads look at the evaluation form before we approve it.
See if there's feedback.
And
Maybe we missed something.
yeah, we could be missing something that's
Maybe there's
very necessary for either police or fire or.
Well, then you can't have a difference, you have.
No, but 6 months, and you can't keep those deadlines to May 1st and June 15th.
What's the,
Sure we can, it just makes them work faster.
what's the comments back from the fire department? Just,
I haven't read it, so I can't comment on it.
right, I understand about the details, but just the overall concept of having one form, actually 2 forms, one for the supervisor and one for self-evaluation to have it for the employee evaluations.
If it's, I mean, I suppose if it's generic enough.
Yeah, without seeing it, I don't.
I mean, it's very generic. It talks about quality of work, attendance, punctuality,
I mean,
job knowledge, reliability, dependability, communication skills, judgment and decision making, initiative and flexibility, cooperation and relationships with others, ability to follow directions, policies and procedures, attitude and work ethic, customer service and professionalism, knowledge of position, training and development, leadership, commitment to goals and achieving results, strategic planning and prioritization.
It's a very neutral
it's a-
performance
yes.
evaluation.
It's one of these.
You can use it
What
across
do you
so many
guys,
different
what
verticals.
do you guys currently use for employee evaluations?
Basically, generic form, more or less like a generic form that we've got that's more fire related in that respect, so,
Yeah, we had made one up.
years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, I can't comment on something I haven't seen yet, so I know Michelle, you rattled it off, but
Yeah.
until it's in front of me,
Well, I
I'm
wasn't-
sorry.
I know.
I wasn't, Jamie, I wasn't looking for like, really detailed approaches, like, well, we may have to kick this out of that, but just, like, Chief kind of knew what the overall concept of it was, and he had good points back on what he currently has and so forth. I just didn't know if you guys kind of had that same notion.
Yeah, about this.
Wanting to use what you guys already have currently in place. for
It's
fire
more or
department.
less tailored fire-wise.
Fire-wise.
Like the police departments is more tailored police-wise, but until I can sit down and kind of compare the two and we put our 2 cents together.
Because they might look almost identical. It's hard.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Sorry, I didn't mean to get into that deep of a discussion on it. It was just kind of seeing if you had the same.
I would suggest that, and I'll give the chiefs a copy.
I'll make a motion to table.
Paper right now. Motion to table. Guess I'll second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion tabled. Elaine will email you copies through.
Thank you.
You bet. Sorry about that.
No worries.
mean, here. You guys
Item AE, discussion, consideration, possible action on intergovernmental agreement for shared road services, specifically Sherry Avenue. In your packet, you have the latest version with all the comments and everything, and on the very top is Mike's handwritten suggestions to this.
So the comments that are written here is this going to then become the one that Vernon votes on this week?
They have already passed it, conditionally on us passing it, and there being no substantive changes.
Some of these changes, I think, are bigger than small changes. I think they're all clarifications, and I don't think that anything, I mean, I don't see a deal killer anywhere, it's just so we get a mutual understanding. I mean, assuming everybody's read the prior version or...
Yeah, we had it at the previous meeting.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go through the rationale for some of these things, we could read it and let everybody read it and ask questions, then whatever's most efficient.
Well, I guess my question is, if we take a motion and vote to accept it with the clarifications or changes in language, then this would have to go back to Vernon to do the same?
I think so, Tony. Some of these things, like there are situations where the pavement is not centered on the road right of way.
Right, yeah.
And, you know, it just wouldn't seem fair to me that you don't split it based on where the center line of the pavement is versus more of it being on one side than the other when you have traffic going two directions, and the residents of both communities benefit equally. And not that...
And I don't think they would argue that point either. I think that's logical sense. But
makes
whether or not
sense.
the verbiage was in here already, I think that's logical sense.
But they assume that people in the future will look at it the same way we do. So it's easier for them to write it down.
Correct.
So,
One question I had, I think does deserve some discussion, is on number 6 at the bottom of page 2. And it's sort of got some of that same rationale that we just talked about. And that is, if there were soft spots or spots in the roadway that are to be rebuilt, and there's just a bad spot on one side of the roadway, to me, the question is, why should that community bear it when the benefit that's going to flow from that road is going to be equal to both communities? And that's debatable, but it just seemed to me that A and B are not part of the trail roadway, and each community should decide how they want to handle culverts and guardrail. But the unstable subgrade is part of this roadway.
Right, but like an example of Sherry Avenue, if there's an unstable soft part of the roadway all the way down at the west end of it, why would we pay for a repair on a part of the road that's clearly and entirely in Vernon?
Well, he's not talking about an end though, he's talking if it's half and half, right? Are you talking from the center line?
Well, I guess I'm talking about all situations.
Okay.
All situations. I mean, ultimately, the roadway is going to be used by the residents of both communities. They're both benefiting equally, I think, along with the general public. And if there's one terribly bad spot on one side or the other, I mean, it happens to be located there by a matter of geology, why should that community pay it when the ultimate benefit is going to be equal? And maybe it doesn't really a lot of discussion, but I at least wanted to raise the point. I can see the guardrails, because those are in colors on the respective side.
but doesn't that spell it out down here underneath A, B, and C, the next paragraph where it says that Such costs for culvert or guardrail shall be allocated and paid for by each village in proportion to the linear feet of the culvert or guardrail located within each village. Doesn't that kind of spell it out how it would be allocated out?
Oh, I'm sorry, Tony.
It's on the next page.
Yeah,
there,
but, I
page
mean,
3.
it talks about the guardrail and stuff, but then the key sentence at the very end says, in the case of the subgrade repair, cubic yardage of stone backfill will be the unit of measurement. But it's saying basically the corresponding village.
I think that's correct, yes. Well, should the village where the bad spot's located bear the entire expense to correct, or should it be a mutual expense to make the road that's gonna be used by everybody? I guess that's the question. I'm not looking for a fight with it. And there was nothing in here I saw that really.
Well, yeah, it actually doesn't spell that out, does it? For the subgrade.
Yeah.
It just does it for culverts and guards. I never realized that.
And the one other, one that I think is a more major change is on page 3, where it's the highlighted language, where I put "and approval" on the right-hand side. The way it's drafted right now is that once the league village takes over and does their thing, it's gone through a process, and then ultimately the other village gets it with cost estimates for review and comment. And it doesn't seem like there's still an opportunity to back out of it and maybe I don't understand the process well enough, but I put that phrase "and approval" in there, giving each party, and it cuts both ways, the opportunity to block something's changed.
That's fair. Again, there's the lead and non-lead, and if one side's not in agreement, it should be discussed and ironed out before this project continues, so.
I think that's the whole point of the shared services committees, is to iron all that
Sure.
stuff out
Yeah,
before
to not
it gets
have
to
those
the board, to not
issues.
waste the board's time.
But again, to cut CYA, right,
Yeah.
put it in the contract,
Right.
it shouldn't come to pass because you should have addressed it already prior to.
Is there a new debt on it now, Warren? Because of carry on? Or, I mean, it's not a rush, you could take one when you think about it, deal with it.
No, they have the bids in already, and they want to lock something in, but they can't lock in without our commitment.
Okay.
The bids are in here, I believe, right?
No, I should think we've seen.
Yeah.
You're right, next page. $700K.
648.
Engineer estimate for the base bid was 704.
Right, so it's coming in a little. We'll wonder what
The original one.
we kind of budgeted for.
I wouldn't have a problem approving it with the legal modifications and kicking it back in. And then it's up to them, either they take it or they don't, and then it has to be continued
Right.
to be ironed out, right? Then the ball's back in their court.
Mm-hmm.
If they accept the changes, then we're off the races. I don't think what he's suggesting is gonna be significant.
No, I don't think they would consider it.
I wouldn't think so either.
We're not changing the
It's
substance,
CYA
of it,
stuff.
right?
Yeah.
It would just cause them to have to convene for another vote on it, right?
No, because they
They could use staff.
they've said as long as it's not a substantive change,
Okay.
you know, we're just clarifying a couple of things, I think.
They would have to determine.
Yeah, that's their call, right?
Yeah, that's up to them
It would
to
be.
decide if it's a meeting or if it's staff level or.
Do you have a copy, the red line copy of this in Word?
I don't know.
You know,
I don't know, it changed a bit.
I don't-
Several times without our direct involvement.
I believe I have it. Is what I had gotten back from your staff as a PDF. So, if I get you the Word document, can you have someone draft in your comments and make a clean copy? Yeah, as well as the red line with your comments. And then we can get that out to them pending approval here.
I'll send it off on a note to you.
Sure.
And they're not major changes.
Correct. Thank you.
I'm not trying to create problems. I think everybody knows that we're not nitpickers.
No.
And see where you-
Big
Right.
picture. But just to clarify it, I just find that people, 99% or 95% of the problems are not anybody trying to cheat each other. They're looking at things from a different perspective, and their words didn't hit the nail on the head as to what they mutually intended to do.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
So, you need that motion?
I do.
Okay, I'll make that motion to approve it with the comments from legal back to Vernon.
Clarifications.
Motion and a second. Any further comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to ask the board, do you feel any need to go into closed session at this time?
My opinion is no.
No, Tony, Larry?
Unless you have something to update us on.
I have an update, but I don't know that it's been in closed session.
I'd say keep it in open.
Okay.
Anybody disagree with that?
So if we don't go into closed session, we resume with open session. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on resolution 2020-201, a resolution authorizing the agreement for fire and EMS services between the village of Big Bend and the village of Vernon. I think everybody has stuff in here.
It's all the same from last one.
Right.
Yeah, I'm saying that there's no revision change, right?
Okay.
It's all exactly the same.
We sat down at staff level with officers from the fire department. Tony and I did.
Yes, after our the meeting on the 16th.
After our board meeting in closed session, we went through a pile of information. We went through ideas, and we have drafted letters that will go out to all of the adjacent communities, leaders, and all of the adjacent communities' fire chiefs.
And non-adjacent communities as well.
True, there's a couple that aren't quite adjacent.
What's the timeline on sending said letters?
How long do you need for the fire department?
Basically, whenever you're ready to go, Lauren. I mean,
Next week, they'll be out Monday or Tuesday.
that works.
Good.
Yeah, we've got the letter already drafted. I will email it out to the board for a once-over. Fire department and I spent some time on it, and we think we're where we need to be.
Good. Get the dialogue going.
Yep.
How are we doing on record management?
It was brought up tonight.
Yeah, that was one of the.
Yeah, Target Solutions
The
is
Target
gonna help with
Solutions is
that.
gonna help with that.
And, we're starting a spreadsheet with, certifications and that we have and, stuff like that, so.
Yeah, we got right on the host right away with that, so. So Target Solutions, once we get that into play over the next couple of weeks, we'll start entering a lot more stuff in and getting that all taken care of for record management.
So, what do we have to do with regard to these items then? Do we have to table them? Do we have to officially vote on them to shoot them down for now? What's the action? Instead of just bringing them up every meeting?
Well, the first one hinges the next 3.
Yeah, exactly.
So you either table it and there's no action on the next 3, you approve it and we go down to the next 3 and do it, or you shoot it down. You either call a vote or you table it.
Motion to table, please.
All of the items that are
Well,
related?
Well, if you table the
Ta-
first
ta-
one, it's dominoes.
Table 1 and the next 3 are all no action.
So however you want. You can table A and consider it all, or table A, B, C, D, however you want to vote on it. I'm fine with all of them being tabled.
Okay? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, correspondence. We have a very nice thank you card from Sadie for plants and flowers for John's funeral. Pass that around. Everybody can read that. We also had our water analysis and sanitary survey done by the county. We passed. I don't know what else to say though. The report will be with the clerk if anybody wants to inspect it and read the results. I think this is right up your alley, Tony.
Pass it on down. Take a look.
Any other correspondence? No? Item 12, public comments. Any public comments?
Since it was brought up tonight.
Mr. Sonnenberg.
Thank you, sir. With the passing of my father, I want to say thank you to everyone for the flowers and everything else that was sent in regards to the funeral. With his passing and the opening that has created on the cemetery board, I'm formally requesting to take his vacancy. So I would like to be considered for that position. My family currently owns 16 plots up at Rural Home Cemetery. It's probably the most out of anyone that is up there. So I would like to put my name in the hat to be considered for the cemetery board.
I would love to get you on before the next cemetery board meeting.
But unfortunately, it's not on the agenda tonight.
I know.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Any other public comments?
I have just one.
Sure.
Tracy Lewandowski. Just inquiring what the letter getting sent out to the other fire departments is in response to.
We are reaching out to get a sense of where they are at with formation of a fire district.
Okay.
You want to
Just
know?
wanted to clarify, because I've been partnering with West Dallas Fire Department, Sparta Area Fire Department, and local ones up north, just trying to table what they're talking about and what's happened in the past. And they all recommended a referendum, and that's what we in the community are still wanting. So I appreciate you letting me know what the letter's about.
Sure, no problem. Any other public comments? Anybody want to play Mike Con?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are
Bedtime.
adjourned.
Last night I just got to sleep and had a waterfall test corner by the garbage truck everywhere up against the building. College Court.
Same.
My apologies for the railing.
Set a reprint. We already got all the copies of the same thing.
It's not formal complaints, and make sure that everything is really back to your property.
Yeah, I'll take that. Just stick my
For some reason, I ended up with.
Tony, do you need your additional copy or do you want to go back?
Oh, yeah.
It's right on